Guys, let's start with a very interesting story from Just Serverisms. I don't want my server to have a sense of humor. I have worked as a server for more than 5 years, so I have several malicious compliances, petty revenge, and other kinds of stories. I figure this one is memorable enough for me to start my Reddit journey with, because it has a dash of entitled parent and petty revenge. It's a long one because it's a two-parter, so I'll pop a DR at the end. So some background. When I first started serving, I figured that the best way for me to approach it was with humor. The way I saw it, most people were out there to have a decent meal and enjoy it. And because I have an odd sense of humor, this meant I came up with some pretty weird but ultimately harmless jokes. For example, if anyone ordered coffee, I'd bring them their scalded bean juice and bovine drippings. When they paid, I'd tell them we accepted cash, card, or your immortal soul. And when they used the machine, I'd say, just make sure that number is correct. If it isn't, then my automatic computing chip has critically failed. Please restart server.exe. Or some other lines. Because I've been doing it for a while, I kept the delivery easy, so people knew I was joking and I had a bunch of material. Some didn't really pay attention, especially when paying, so it went over their heads. Few didn't really care one way or another, but most times I'd get a laugh. Because of this, I rarely got complaints. Some people didn't like my sense of humor, and I understood that, but at best, they just wouldn't tip. No biggie. Except for this one customer who we'll call EP for entitled parent. EP was seated at my table with his wife and 2 kids. One kid looked a little sad when I first approached their table, so I thought that it'd be a perfect opportunity. When I brought them their drinks, I made sure to be as humorous as I could. Me, here's the cow juice, both from a white cow and brown one. Sorry for the delay, we had a utter disaster milking them. K1 and K2 giggle. Me, and then the caustic aqua to burn your dried leaves, as well as some dismembered citrus. NM looks confused for a moment, but then I see the O moment and a smile. Me. Lastly, your dihydrogen monoxide in its solid and liquid forms. EP, however, looks as sour as the lemon slices. EP. Excuse me? What did you say this was? NM. Really? Me. Why, it's the essence of life itself. And something that came out of the dinosaurs years ago. Just filtered super well. Cue more giggles from the kids, but the EP looked really annoyed. Thankfully, NM, for nice mom, stopped him from doing anything by saying, "Honey, it's water. You know, H2O." After that, the meal went relatively quietly. I got their food orders, brought them it when it came out hot and fresh. No clever lines there. The menu was too big to come up with something for everything, though I did try for the kids. I checked on them twice to make sure the food was good, even got to chatting with the wife and kids for a bit. EP was silent the whole time, only really nodding when I asked if his food was good or holding out his glass for more water. I didn't mind him too much though, because I thought that it was the end of it. I brought them the bill, with the usual joke of cash, card, and firstborn children up at the front whenever you're ready. And even NM joked back, "Guess kid 1 is doing the dishes." Next time I had stopped by the table, EP was up at the front paying, while the kids drew on the kids' menus and NM watched them. NM thanked me for my great attitude, handing me a $7 tip for cheering up her kids. Turns out the family dog had a vet visit and the kids were worried. I just told her that I was more than happy to help take their mind off it, and I hoped they came back soon. That should have been the end of it, except that it wasn't. Because while NM was thanking me, it turns out EP was complaining to the shift manager, saying stuff like, and I'm paraphrasing because I heard this after from my manager, "OP is obnoxious, makes stuff up, important for later, and won't stop talking. I just want to get my meal, not have to deal with a brat annoying my family." She even suggested I pay with my kids. The general gist of his complaint was that he just wanted a server who was bland, made no jokes, handed them their food, and walked away. What made him a real EP was that he demanded a discount and free dessert for his kids for his trouble. This being the food service industry, where customer is king, my manager caved like wet tissue paper and personally brought the dessert. This being a place I've worked for years and I had a good relationship with my manager, we both just chatted about how much of a dick this guy was after he was gone. Now, here's where the MC comes in. Fast forward to about a month later. I'm working the afternoon shift on a Wednesday. It's in the dead period, and there's about a couple hours at the start of my shift where I'm the only one in the front of the house, and my manager is in the back counting last shift's cash. I'm basically alone, save for the cook, who isn't allowed up at the front. So when EP and his family come in, I can't immediately seat them because I'm taking food out. Still, New Mexico and kids were excited to see me, while behind them, EP stares at me like I'm a shit stain on a napkin. I can tell he remembers me, and more importantly, I remember him and his complaint. His mistake is going to the washroom while I sat his family. It was the start of my shift, so I was still in a really good mood. I asked how they were. Kid 1 said that the dog was doing much better, and Kid 2 asked if he could have some brown udder juice. NM ordered herself a peppermint tea and a coffee for EP. As I sat them, I told them that I was going to do something different today. I told the kids weren't mad at them, I promise. NM was confused, but I just smiled and winked before I left to get their drinks. By the time that I had the drinks, EP was there and waiting. Perfect. I slowed my pace from my usual speed into a slow march. The kids look up at me, clearly expecting. EP, we're not ready to order yet. Me, completely emotionless. Very well, sir. Here is your coffee. Tea, peppermint, milk, chocolate, juice, orange. 3 waters. 1 water, no ice. 4 creamers. Sugar is in the caddy on your wife's right. Is there anything else you require of me? EP, number. The kids and NM were confused. I had done a total 180 from peppy jokester to monotonous robot, and I was only gone for a couple minutes. But I just turned 90 degrees to the right and went to another table, where I dropped the act and went back to being me. This went on for a little while, as EP wasn't ready to order the next 2 times I stopped, even though his kids already knew what they wanted. I was neutral every time I stopped by their table, and then went right back to being fun around the other 2. I chatted with one regular about some of the games he was playing, and an older couple about their kids. But with EP's table? Nada. NM asked me to put the order for appetizers, and I complied. Funnily enough, it was the same appetizer the older couple had. So they could hear me say to them, 6 hush puppies to a good home in warm stomach acids. Only to bring theirs and say, hush puppy, 6. Naturally, by the time I stopped at EP's table with the appetizer, no one was happy. The kids wanted to hear the jokes from me to them, not overheard. Even EP was annoyed because I was way nicer and warmer to other tables. But NM asked the question I was waiting for. NM, OP, how come you're joking with everyone but us? Last time, we got the best service I've ever had in chain diner. EP, get me your manager now. I refuse to be ignored when I'm just here to eat with my family. I, in fact, made no move to get my manager, but carefully schooled my expression to something neutral and kept my tone as calm as can be. But sir, last time you insisted to my manager while was paying that I be factual, concise, and as non-intrusive. As I recall, you found my behavior annoying to you and your family. Instantly, NM and his kids looked right at him. He immediately went red. EP, that's not what I said. I said that the service was great. Me, actually, sir, and allow me to remind you that you insisted I not make stuff up. You complained that I wouldn't stop talking and found my humor offensive, particularly the part where you claimed I suggested you pay with your children. And my manager offered you 25% off, as well as a free dessert as recompense. NM, what? EP said that you offered it because you felt bad about our dog. Me, while I would have liked to, I did not. So my behavior today is in alignment with his previous complaint. At this point, the kids were upset and NM was furious. She asked me to give them a couple minutes with their order, and I just nodded and left. I did see NM and EP head out of the restaurant for a bit, and NM returned after a bit alone. As it turns out, EP is a serial complainer to try and get discounts and free food from restaurants, and NM was very upset that not only he pulled it again, but on their new favourite server. So he was off to eat alone at the Golden Arches, and I was back to joking and cheering the kids up. I apologised for my behaviour, and the meal went on like normal. I got another complaint from this guy from our customer surveys, and this time the manager said that I was out of line, but I thought it was worth it. Besides, NM and the kids came in every now and then after that, asking if I was serving. Personally, I think the guy was just mad that he didn't know that H2O is water. TLDR. EP complains that the server jokes too much with his family, so next visit they get a bland robot who calls him out. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I did not expect this to explode overnight, and I know a lot of people find my humour annoying, and I get that. I'm also the kind of person who wants a server to leave me alone when I'm out eating. And since humour is subjective, I know that it can be hit and miss. A lot of people didn't pay much mind, some laughed, but I rarely got people who really complained, even in 5 years of working. Plus, I usually lead with the water or coffee. If a table wasn't receptive, I'd drop it. When I'm working, I tend to joke more with those who are receptive of it, and when there's time. Since my diner is near a university, I usually get students, families, and older folk, as opposed for SRS business types, so the jokes kind of grew from the people I interacted with. It also means that during food rushes, it gets really fast-paced, so I usually don't have the time. I played it up for that table because the kids and mom loved it. Edit 2. Thank you all for the comments. I understand that my humour isn't for everyone. Usually I have one greeting joke, but if a table isn't receptive to it, I'd move on and be a regular server. I'm not the type who will push through and be joking 100% of the time. The reason I continued with this table was that the wife and kids were enjoying it and they liked chatting with me. Had all of them not been interested or the guy just asked me to stop, I would have dropped it. Instead, he made up a complaint that I was annoying his family and demanded discounts and free stuff. The malicious compliance was executed perfectly. By calmly and professionally switching to a bland, robot-like demeanour, the server highlighted the inconsistency in the customer's complaints. It was more than perfect. The next story from gingerbreadman_13. Homeowners Association doesn't care about my health, but how dare my flat look non-conformist. This happened 5 years ago. It's a long one, but worth the read, or at least I think so. First, a bit about me. For the story's sake, you can call me Alex. I was a 29-year-old male at the time. I'm generally very friendly and accommodating and try to avoid confrontation where possible and always try to do things in a peaceful and patient manner. Now, on to the backstory. I lived in a gated community comprised entirely of multiple blocks of small apartments. Every block of apartments looked exactly the same as the other blocks of apartments around it. They were a few floors high, and I lived on the first floor. Clarification, I believe in America the first floor is the ground floor. Where I live, the ground floor is the ground floor, and the first floor is the one above the ground floor, or, as Americans would call it, the second floor. So I lived one floor above the ground floor. The Homeowners Association, like estate management, was extremely strict about any infringements regarding things we weren't allowed to do and would issue fines very quickly if you were in breach of the rules and didn't rectify it. For example, you were allowed to have furniture on your patio, but you weren't allowed to have any decor on your patio. I imagine it was because they wanted uniformity in the appearance of the blocks of flats. Also, no loud noise or music was allowed after 10 p.m. I personally agreed with the no loud noise thing. It was quite a peaceful community that frankly was very well managed, which is something I enjoyed about it. I didn't agree so much with the no decor thing. As a photographer and artist, personal expression is important to me, but I figured as long as I kept it tasteful and stylish and mostly out of visible sight, they hopefully wouldn't have an issue with it. I'm a big fan of vintage motorbikes and had a few tasteful, or at least I thought they were tasteful, metal posters with classic bikes like Triumph Bonnevilles, Indian Scouts, BSAs, Nortons, Ducatis, etc. up on one of the walls of my patio. They were at such an angle that meant they weren't easily visible from the rest of the complex, so didn't think it would be an issue. Somehow, it was still spotted by the estate manager. But more on this later. I also had a few pot plants on the ledge of my balcony. Clarification: plants in pots, not marijuana. Again, we'll get to that later. You need to know about it for the rest of the story. My downstairs neighbour also used to smoke in her back garden. The ground floors had small gardens, and my balcony was directly above her garden. Her smoke would rise up and go through my open bedroom window, or the large sliding door on my patio, which was usually open in summer, and enter my flat. Since I don't smoke, this bothered me. The smell seeped into my furniture and bedding. Even my sleeping pillow smelled of smoke. I politely spoke to her in person about it, and she apologized for the inconvenience, but never stopped doing it. She was actually a very friendly lady. She was never horrible. I suppose she was nice enough to be friendly, but not nice enough to stop doing it. So I decided to take it a step further, and I emailed the manager of the gated community to ask if there was something that could be done. The following is the email transaction between me and the manager, who I'll call Nicole. Good day. I stay in Unit 117 on the first floor, and my downstairs neighbour, who lives on the ground floor, although being a very friendly old lady, has a nasty habit of smoking in her patio. My issue is that in summer with the heat, I leave my bedroom window and sliding door open to keep my flat cool, and the fumes from her cigarettes are constantly rising up and entering my apartment. I'm not a smoker, so this bothers me. My flat smells as if a smoker lives there. Now my question is there any rule or law that says she can't smoke in her patio due to her smoke entering my flat? She knows her smoke bothers me and has apologized to me for it, but hasn't done anything about it. If she were to only smoke inside her flat or outside her front door, I'm sure the smoke wouldn't come into my flat nearly as much, since I never have my front door open. Thanks in advance. Regards, Alex. She responded with, "Good morning, Alex. This is a very contentious issue, as this is her home and there is no law at the moment stating you cannot smoke in your home. Regards, Nicole." I wasn't happy with that response, but I figured there was nothing more I could do about it and didn't want to bother making a bigger issue of it, so I just forgot about it and moved on until about a year later, when estate management picked up on 2 infringements by me. At this point, Nicole had resigned and Stuart had replaced her. This is the email I got from Stuart. Good day. I trust that you are well. Please could you remove the pots from the wall as per the attached photo, as this is dangerous should they be knocked off and fall onto someone downstairs and in breach of the conduct rules. Furthermore, no items can be attached to the walls in the patio, and you are requested to remove the pictures as per the photo, as this is aesthetically displeasing. Your assistance is appreciated. Kind regards. Stuart, Estate Manager. After that email, I was now a bit upset and determined to get my way in terms of my smoking downstairs neighbour. Cue my malicious compliance. Good day, Stuart. I'm very well. Thanks for asking. Absolutely, I will take the pictures down. Not a problem. We wouldn't want someone's vision to be irreparably damaged from the unsightly trauma that is my vintage bike picture collection. Though I must comment that I appreciate the very polite way my decor is described as aesthetically displeasing, as opposed to what that actually means. Damn, that's ugly is probably a more colloquial translation. My feelings might have been hurt otherwise. I'm very relieved I didn't go into the profession of interior decorating, which a few people I know have said I should have done, since the sudden realization that my taste in style isn't what I once thought it was. It could have been a disaster career-wise. Alternatively, what if I were to replace the photos of the bikes with a nice family portrait of my parents? Granted, they aren't supermodels, but they're attractive to me, though I may be biased in that opinion since I care for them, so I'm hoping they're not too ugly. Oops, I mean aesthetically displeasing. If that fails, maybe a reproduction of the Mona Lisa would be sufficient to meet your high standards. Tourists travel across the globe and wait in line for hours just to see it for a few minutes. Would that be allowed? I won't even charge fellow tenants for looking at it when they're walking past my balcony. Obviously, I'm being a little ridiculous and I don't mean to give you a hard time. You're just doing your job and enforcing some of the ridiculous rules that management come up with, like the communist-level restriction on personal expression and the freedom of choice to decorate and style our own property in a manner that we like. God forbid we show some individuality. Now that I think about the endless rows of identical-looking Soviet-era housing structures do have a nice seizure-inducing repetitive nature about them. While we're on the subject of decor, how is it that that plastic patio furniture is still allowed? Yes, it is patio furniture which complex rules say are allowed on patios, but damn, that is painful to look at. You know what I mean, right? That cheap white plastic stuff one buys at the furniture section at those large bulk buying stores? I find it very aesthetically displeased. Oh, screw it, it's ugly. I don't like looking at it. It comes across as tacky. Can't they be scrapped as well? I'm going off topic again. The whole point of me bringing all of this up is that a few months ago I emailed asking about a complaint I had. The complaint was that the lady who lives directly downstairs from me regularly smokes in her garden. And I, being the lover of oxygen that I am, keep my windows and patio door open for fresh air, and her smoke is constantly wafting into my apartment. Me being a non-smoker, I get quite annoyed. I asked if anything could be done about this. I was told, it's her property and her patio. She can smoke on it if she wants to. I know that health legislation stipulates that smoking within a certain distance from a designated non-smoking area is illegal. If it's good enough for public spaces, shouldn't I have that same right in my own house? Granted, I don't have designated non-smoking area signs in my flat, but I'm the only one who lives there, so I already know there's no smoking allowed. I made the rule. It would be silly to put them up inside. Should I put them up outside on my patio instead so others can see? Maybe they don't know. I don't like cigarette smoke. Actually, wait. I already know the answer to that. They're aesthetically displeasing. Forget I mentioned it. So to recap, what really gripes me is that when my neighbour smokes so close to my flat that I can practically smell what brand of cigarette she smokes, I'm told I can't do anything about it even though it might affect my health because it's her property and she can do what she likes on it. By that logic, she could host orgies on her lawn and I couldn't do anything about so long as she kept the volume down after 10 p.m. But I can't put up pictures on my patio because some people might not like the way they look, even though it is also my property, and it would be nice if I could do with it as I wanted, provided it wasn't an eyesore. Since I take a lot of pride in my flat, I wouldn't call it an eyesore as I maintain it quite well, or at least I think so. If only a person's lungs and health were as important as other people's inability to mind their own business. So, what I really want to know is there any way that my neighbour could possibly just smoke inside her flat, or at least outside the front of her flat if she insists on smoking outside where the smoke won't come into my place as easily? I would accept that too. I'm not a completely unreasonable guy. I find her smoke nasally displeasing. I normally wouldn't make such a big deal about it, but I'm starting to feel that what I'm subjected to versus what others have to be subjected to is a bit unfair. Sorry to put all this on you, Stuart. I understand it's totally not your fault. I'll still take the pictures and the pot plants down immediately. Your assistance is appreciated. Kind regards, Alex, Unit 117. I sent that reply after 6 p.m, and I did not expect him to respond until the next morning. But half an hour later, I got a reply. My email must have made an impact. Hi Alex, thank you for your email. I thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I do understand your frustration, and unfortunately, this is the reality of staying in such built-up complexes. I will address the issue of the smoking with your neighbour, and will revert to you. Thank you for your assistance and understanding. Kind regards, Stuart. To me, that sounded positive, so Stuart deserved a pat on the back. I sent a short reply. Thanks, Stuart. Much appreciated. You're a top-notch guy. By now, it was after 8 p.m., and I'm sure someone with a 9 to 5 desk job like Stuart should have been at home and clocked out, but he was still replying to me. Hi, Alex. I have confirmed that smoking is only allowed inside the unit or at least 5 meters from a public place, such as your balcony. I will confirm the neighbour's unit number in the morning, unless you can advise offhand, and will address her on the smoking issue. Kind regards, Stuart. I was over the moon. I ran downstairs to see what her unit number was and ran back upstairs to reply. Stuart, you've gone from being a top-notch guy to being a legend. Thanks so much. Her unit is 107. I was worried the outcome wouldn't be great and would have to accidentally bump into my pots while taking my pictures down while she was conveniently smoking in just the right position. It would be a tragic accident, of course. Cough, cough. Sorry, some smoke got into my lungs. Though that would be a lot of effort since I've already taken the plants and pictures down, and I would have to put them all up again to make the story sound believable to the police because they would no doubt interrogate me on suspected murder with a pot plant. And that's frankly too much effort. Luckily, I don't have to resort to that. Thanks again, Stuart. Your hard work has kept me out of prison. It's late. You can email her in the morning. Go home and have a beer. You've earned it. P.S. In all seriousness, though, I'm totally kidding about the pot plant thing, and if the lady downstairs were to peg it in the near future, it would be completely coincidental and nothing to do with me, and I'd appreciate it if you forgot you ever spoke to me. This would be terrible evidence against me in court. I mean, I dislike smokers, but I wouldn't kill them. I'm not crazy. Regards, Alex. Sadly, that was the last I would hear from Stuart. Our correspondence stopped after that. I felt we had developed a bond, and it ended as quickly as it had begun. I only lived in that estate for another 2 years and had no more issues with the downstairs neighbour or her cigarette smoke. I now live in the suburbs in a lovely house with my wife and have no downstairs neighbours to complain about and no Stuarts to tell me what I can and can't do. I will treasure our time together. I hope wherever he is, he has our email thread printed out and pinned on his office board above his desk and thinks of me fondly whenever he looks at it. Edit. I accidentally gave away Stuart's real first name on one of the paragraphs instead of using his alias, so I have corrected it, and clarified that the pot plants were potted plants and not marijuana, though it could very well have been pot since it's legal in my country. The malicious compliance was flawlessly executed, blending humour with sharp observation of the rule's absurdity. OP cleverly used sarcasm to highlight the unfairness of the situation, leading to positive results. It was both entertaining and satisfying.